Get it all out. Purge the demons.
Exactly. All right. By the power of true story, I have the microphone! Yes, it is Matthew, and I am here to talk about Masters of the Universe, along with Pete Wright, a fellow of my generation. We grew up on He-Man. We all wanted to ride Cringer. We all wanted to befriend Tila. We, had all the feelings, all the thoughts, and now, like so much more of our childhood, it is being mined for money and nostalgia bait. And to be reinterpreted. And so me and Pete Wright are here to talk about this movie, to talk about the trend of nostalgia bait, to talk about what in the world was happening with this movie, should it have been happening with this movie, and what did we think overall. So, Mr. Pete, I'm just going to start by asking, what was your relationship to He-Man growing up?
My relationship to He-Man was, I mean, I saw the first commercial when the first Grayskull toy released, and I thought, that's cool. A year later, the cartoon comes out. I watched every episode of it, and then it vanished when She-Ra came out, and I did not play with the toys anymore. Frankly, I transitioned hardcore to Transformers, and this
Mm,
has been a brand that just evaporated in my life. It's been fascinating to revisit because I was deeply into it, and then suddenly, like somebody flipped a switch, I was not.
yeah.
This is the weirdest legacy brand play that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, it's been on such a weird journey because I'm going to assume that, like me, you did not see the Dolph Lundgren 1987 movie.
I absolutely did.
Oh, you
I
did?
don't,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah,
So
yeah,
you held on to that
absolutely.
brand a little longer. For me, I was also a kid. I'm a little younger than you, so I think I was not watching it when it came out, but I was watching it when it was in syndication. It was never my favorite. I was definitely a Voltron guy. Like that was
Mhm.
one of my favorites. As I was thinking about it, there's like three or four of these movies, three or four of these TV shows that were all on around the same time. You get home from school, they'd be on like half hour, back to back to back,
Yeah.
and I get them mixed up. Like I totally forgotten that Orko was in this. I thought he was in not the not Voltron, but there's another one where they like all come together to make something. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it was kind of interesting, and I remember seeing this and wondering what was going on, and being kind of curious about it. And have you paid any attention to the most recent Masters of the Universe content that's been coming out?
No, I have not.
So, as far as I understand, it started with about 4 or 5 years ago. I think one of the best animated shows that's ever come out. They made an animated version of She-Ra by a fantastic filmmaker and creator whose name does not come to mind at the moment. Queer woman who very clearly wanted to do kind of a reinterpretation of She-Ra from a specifically queer feminist lens. And so she had shorts on under the skirt, which the old style male fans went absolutely crazy angry for, and
Of
hopefully most of
course.
them got put on lists. But like, it was a fantastic show, wonderful characters, wonderful dialogue, great messages. And then a couple years later, I think Netflix worked with Kevin Smith, and they actually had a He-Man TV show. Well, they had a Masters of the Universe animated show, which I thought was really fun. We did an episode on it. Spoilers: the first half doesn't really involve He-Man, and really put Tila and Sorceress and some others forward. And then, of course, he comes back in the second half. And I guess that has just kind of continued on. And then doing some more research, what I understood is that this movie comes out of that, plus all the nostalgia bait in general, plus the success of Barbie. And that was this idea of like, okay, what's the next big Mattel toy that we can do?
Yeah. I think the Barbie thing is something that is being under investigated in
Uh
all
huh.
of the hue and the Strom and Drang of
Yeah.
He-Man, the film being arguably a flop. I mean, I think what's interesting about the kind of closed loop problem of this version of He-Man is that, its biggest opening demographic was very clearly us, right?
Right.
45 to 54. And that, I mean, 29% of the total audience, according to opening weekend receipts, was in that group. Under 18s, barely double digits combined. the nostalgia audience showed up for this, and the next generation did not get a handoff, and
Yeah.
that's just it. Now, part of the problem, the counter case with Barbie, is that this toy IP was a genuine cultural event across generations, right? It wasn't
Right.
just a two-season show based on a toy that we loved for 3 years in the
Yeah.
80s. This was a thing. Barbie's a thing that grandmothers bring their daughters, who bring their daughters
Right.
all to the movie, and they all get something out of it. And I think that is where this movie will be relegated as just a missed opportunity, because Mattel chose their next big budget brand to be a thing that was already in the graveyard,
Yeah.
really the cultural
I mean,
graveyard.
we have talked on other podcasts about, you sitting down with your children to watch Star Wars and how
Mhm.
excited you were about that. Do you remember watching He-Man with your kids?
Oh God,
Or like
no.
buying your son his first He-Man toy?
Right?
No,
Not at
it wasn't
all.
passed on. And
No.
I think that's a part of it. And I also think there's a part of it about Greta Gerwig made it very clear from the beginning that, the Barbie doll has a very interesting place that's very controversial and discussed within feminism. And within, is this a symbol of feminism? Is it a symbol of patriarchy? What can we say about it? How can we wrestle with it? And was very clearly interested in that.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest reasons this movie fails as a movie, and there's nothing to do with the marketing, but also is like, I think there's an opportunity to do something similar with He-Man, and the movie kind of just didn't want to pick a lane and just wanted to have fun with it all. And we'll get to where all that is in a second. But let me just kind of start with the
Yeah.
overall. What do you think of the movie?
Okay, it served its needs for me, and I'm sort of conflicted by it, because the movie started and I thought this is going to be dumb, and it lived up to that bar for a little while, and then I started getting notes of its own wit, of its own
Yeah.
embarrassment of itself, and I thought there's some fun stuff in there. It's kind of big, dumb, and brilliant, but only in these weird bursts. For example, there's a bit at the end where all of the major characters are standing on the big bridge outside of Castle Grayskull, and somebody says a line that is irrelevant, and they all have their hands on their hips, and they arch their backs and laugh together. That ha 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 ha. That is one of those iconic things from the cartoon that I did not expect. I didn't remember, but
Yeah.
the moment I saw it, I was awash in exactly the nostalgia that I think they wanted me to have. I was laughing out loud, and frankly, the rest of the audience was absolutely into it. So
Yeah.
those beats were successful. But, and again with the Barbie comparison, Barbie took its baggage, right? And it has generations of baggage, and absolutely weaponized it for satire.
Yeah.
Most of He-Man, I think, was largely embarrassed by its own baggage.
Yeah.
And there are these whiffs of brilliant doses of wit. And otherwise, it's a movie that tries to address its baggage with the most obvious plays you could possibly imagine. Making Adam an HR representative struggling with, conflict resolution. I'm not sure that was the way to update this character. It was a way,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure it was the way to update the character. So I think the further I get from it, the more fond I have been of its
Uh-huh.
wit. But I think I'm gonna forget this movie pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, I think I feel the same way. And I was trying to kind of describe this movie, and I came home and I said to my partner Mary, I don't think I saw a movie. I think I saw the He-Man Film Festival. And the problem was that the 5 movies that I saw were all playing at the same time. Because first of all, there was Skeletor auditioning to be a Shakespearean villain, one of the most evil ones, like Iago.
Mhm.
There was a Saturday Night Live sketch starring Fisto and Ram Man trying to make as many sexual references as they could.
Yep.
There
Nailed that.
was, some of the best episodes of Community were when they spoofed something. And
Mhm.
Alison Brie was doing that. She was not in the same movie as anyone else. She was 100%
sure.
running a spoof. There was, someone said to Idris Elba, the most cliche right now is the cop or the soldier who fails in their job, gets drunk, disappoints their daughter, and somehow their daughter inspires them to come back to themselves and make it again and be a good person and put down the bottle. No one can make that work. And Idris Elba said, bet. And frankly, that was my favorite one of the many movies we saw. And then there was Nicholas Galzine in a one-man act on a meditation of masculinity. Because and maybe that's a good place to start, is I feel like Barbie said, this doll is at the heart of all the discussions around feminism. Let's talk about it. And I felt like I spent most of the movie not sure what this was trying to say, because going into it, I felt like there's kind of two ways that this movie could go. And just kind of give some context to those who don't know, like the He-Man character is like utterly masculine, male. I mean, he's named He-Man. And if you grew up watching it, you probably think, oh my gosh, this was like the height of masculinity. And a lot of the people who talk about, Hollywood is too woke and they're tearing down masculinity will often hold up He-Man as an example of like what a real man should be. The thing is, it was campy as hell. Like, the pink shirt he wears in the movie is because Adam wears a pink like tunic all through the thing. The whole thing is very camp. It is masculinity as told by the WWE. It is a satire itself. But it felt like the movie couldn't decide. There were large parts of the movie that I was cringing at because it felt like it was saying, yeah, we don't need a woke movie. We need a movie about manly men who do manly things. And we're going to give you that with this He-Man. And so much of him being the HR guy gets played for laughs, gets played for, oh, can you imagine he has to have pronouns? And of course, it's a black woman who's not traditionally attractive in the way like a woman is, which is shade. I think she's very beautiful, but like has a shaved head.
We're going to lampoon her.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, can you imagine this white masculine male having to cringe against a white black woman who's treating him like that? And another part of it, I was trying to say, no, wait a minute. Actually, maybe He-Man's idea of masculinity is kind of dumb. And maybe we should talk about this in a toxic masculinity kind of way. And I don't know if like there were 4 writers, by the way, and that's never a good thing.
Right.
And I don't know if maybe one of the writers started out on either of those polls, and then either the other writers or the studio or something like forced them to dial it back. But it just, by the end, it felt just like a mush. Like there's one scene where he goes back and forth between Adam and He-Man. It's the whole thing in the movie. He says, by the power of Grayskull, in the TV show as well. And he transforms between the two. Somehow in the original, Teela putting Lois Lane even to shame because there's no glasses involved. Can't tell that those two are the same person. But I digress. At one point, he is Adam. He can't get to the sword, so he can't become He-Man. And he's trying to get them to be a powerful man and he's to be a powerful army. And someone has told him that, like, your power is empathy and leadership and all these things. And so he tries to use his HR skills to bring them together into being an army. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to show that, like, yeah, there can be some, sensitive skills that a man can have that can still be part of being a great leader. But then that just turns into a joke of him talking about the names that he had for all of them. And again, the kind of way you were saying, the way the movie's kind of embarrassed by itself is they all have these ridiculous names. In the movie, those names are only in Adam's head because he knew them when he was 10 years old, then forgot about them.
Right.
Anyway, that's kind of my long rant, and I'll let you jump in and comment. But to me, it felt like, I don't think the movie had to take on masculinity in any way, but it felt like it kind of wanted to, but then just didn't know what it was trying to say and wanted to just kind of tick some boxes on both sides while playing it very, very safe.
Yeah. It's actually, I mean, there are a bunch of things in there that I think I want to respond to, but the Gallet scene is an interesting one. Like, this is an actor who puts his body through brutal extremes to embody a character whose arc argues that manhood is not about the body, and then the camera is going to linger on the pecs the whole time, right? Like, it is a celebration of the body, and it's fine. Like, the body is awesome. Like, it's doing good things. But I almost feel like the more it tries to reckon with its own updating by way of empathy, not dominance. It's hanging a flag on the wrong things. And I'll note,
Yeah.
Travis Knight said himself that Skeletor is the embodiment of toxic masculinity. And we haven't said Skeletor once yet, right? I'm not sure that Knight saw the issues with portrayals of masculinity embodied in He-Man when he
Right.
was making this movie. I don't know that he did. There is little evidence on screen that he did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I thought Skeletor was in a different movie. He's auditioning to be in a Kenneth Branagh superhero Shakespeare movie. And I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was one of the best things in the movie. And I was kind of horrified when I heard it was Jared Leto, because I don't like Jared Leto normally. But like the red eyes, like all of it worked so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're really right. And I think that's it's why I think the movie just felt messy all over the place. You know, there was just so much going on in so many different directions. And it didn't know what it was trying to do. And like, it's funny because there is this recurring gym bro idea where like he's the guy who gets teased at the gym because he doesn't know how to do these things. But his like super muscled physique, it has nothing to do with the gym. He's a nepo baby. Like he's the son of the king, is Prince Adam. And so he therefore gets, and also because the great eagle sorceress lady, named literally Sorceress, declares that he should be it, but not because of his strength, because of his empathy and leadership, which we never see in the movie to begin with. So yeah, the whole thing, and she's what makes him turn big and muscly.
Yeah, well, and let me just say practically, this was a thing that did take me out of the movie, that he already, I mean, he's a big dude under his clothes. I don't care what pink shirt you put him in. There is no way I'm going to believe that he's actually a scrawny nobody until he gets the sword. He was already massive, and this is not an issue of effects or anything like that. I just feel like they needed a visual transition, and the visual transition took his body when it was in a shirt, made it smaller, and then bigger again during the big transition. And I thought that was weird. Like, let's just own it. There are people with large physiques. He was fine. So I don't know exactly what I wanted. Like, would it have been better to have them visually shrink him the entire time and do a reverse Captain America kind of a situation? I don't know. This was weird.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, though, you bring up camp. Like, He-Man has always been this like camp queer-coded icon, right? He's got a fur loincloth, the strappy harness he's always wearing, that physique, I have the power, the catchphrase, right? And in some ways the movie kind of leans further into that, almost to the point where you get the movie trying to say, to make a masculinity then and now argument,
right?
But it's really saying this is what this character was all along. We're going to have jokes about the loincloth being in the way all along, and kind of celebrate this character being a multi-quadrant appeal character. I actually don't mind how that comes out. This sort of nod and a wink of this character as a sort of queer-coded icon plays for me in a way I didn't expect. Right? It's one of the things that I think the Galatzine portrayal does well.
And that's interesting, because I think if I had seen that movie, I would probably have liked it a lot more. I don't think I saw it. To me, it didn't feel like an interesting commentary. It felt indecisive. It felt like one person was writing a scene to say, let's go this way, and someone else was writing a scene to say, let's go this way, and no one ever like reconciled them. But and maybe and if other people see it the way you're talking about, that's fantastic, because I think that could be a fun thing. But like, to me, his relationship with his father is one of the best examples here, because we get a scene early on where Idris Elba is man-at-arms, is Duncan, and his father is the king. And we get these scenes about a young Adam as a boy who really is kind of like, a boy who probably a lot of us identified with. He seems like he'd rather read books than go out and train. He doesn't want to play with swords. He's constantly getting beaten up, especially he's getting bullied by a girl, which I think again is like kind of supposed to be a specific thing, and that's kind of leans to which way it's saying. And there's a scene where his Duncan is really trying to help him, and the king comes over to watch him be strong, and he gets his ass kicked. And then the king turns around, and Duncan, the man at arms, says, "Don't worry, stand up right now, so that your father can see that you are strong, that you get back up even when you're knocked down." And it's a really beautiful little moment, except that the father never turns around. And that again felt, it's heartbreaking. Except then the movie forgot about that. Because then there's a scene where the father dies, and there's sort of like a half-hearted moment from the father of like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, treat you better." And He-Man immediately just throws it off. Like, no, don't worry. Like, we never have any kind of like the wrestling of, don't be the, like to me, that's a great setup for, you could be the kind of man your father wants to be, which is what people thought He-Man of the 80s was, or you could be the man you're supposed to be, which is kind of what you're talking about. That would have been a great movie.
Yeah, I think I think the way you put it is I think is right on, right? Because and I don't remember the exact line, and I don't have the script, but it is something to the effect of, I just wanted you to be able to protect yourself, right? I wanted you to be safe, not I wanted you to be comfortable and embody your own identity. And I just, I wanted you to be skilled. Right. I came off like a jerk when you were 10 because of my own stuff, not yours. There was none of that reconciliation. You're right to call it half-hearted. It felt half-hearted. It felt like an empty reconciliation that never addressed the actual issues that were going on between father and son. And it made Adam's empathy, like HR skills stuff, which should have come absolutely to bear in this moment with his father, a punchline rather than this genuine sort of source of heroism and bravery, emotional bravery, being able to say truths to his dad that he was never able to say. That's the movie I wanted.
Yeah. Like, another way I think you could have gone with that, because as you said, I thought it was an interesting choice to show him like he's big and muscled, and there's a scene in the movie where he goes out on a date, and I think here's the kind of brilliance that the movie did, that, and I don't know, this is one of the bits you're thinking of, where the movie starts with him as a voiceover explaining welcome to the world of Eternia, and it's beautiful and it's technicolor and it's so like, we've talked about the rolling shots of Asgard, and this puts those to shame. It is just so gorgeous. And there's this great fight with all the evil people and the good people, and some of it's a little weird, but it's fine. And then you get to the point of, Adam being thrown out of that world, thrown to Earth, and that's how he lands in Oklahoma City. And then the punchline is, it cuts to him on a date, and she had asked him, "So how'd you come to Oklahoma City?" And that was the answer he told her.
I thought that was great. Yes.
It was so good. And like, I don't think you need to have it based on Earth, but if you're going to do that, sure, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was really successful.
And then it says, the woman involved is like, "Yeah, no, I'm out of here." And again, you show him like a Nebush, you show him like the little version of Captain America, I sort of get it.
Yeah.
But I found a number of comments online from women and from other genders, especially women, saying, "No, the way his biceps looked in that pink shirt, he could talk about whatever he wanted. I'm not leaving that date."
I believe they call those boyfriend biceps.
Yes. Like, and the idea that he's not. So again, what if the movie was, he's a gym bro, he pumps iron, but that's not where masculinity is. Yes. And that's the thing, is that like in this version, his muscles don't change, but he gets courage, he gets leadership, he gets aura. Like, that would have been great.
Even though he has all those things, he also has his humanity. And those are the tools that he gets to use to solve problems, I think. And you can still make it a big fighty fight thing. Like, people want to see swords smashed. Great. It can still be that. But I think, as long as you bring up that opening date, we got to bring up the final sort of Skeletor montage, where Skeletor shows up in all of the situations that we've seen over the course of the movie, dragging He-Man through this sort of mental montage, and it
Uh-huh.
was, I thought, fantastic. One of the highlights of the movie, where essentially Adam is reliving these moments while Skeletor is judging him in garb of
Right.
those scenarios. And I thought it was funny and so smart, so smart. That sequence.
Fascinating.
You
That was
didn't.
not my interpretation of the slightest, but I love
Oh,
that it worked for you. And I
oh,
can see with the idea of Skeletor as toxic masculinity, I can totally see where you're coming from with that.
yeah.
It just didn't work for me for whatever reason, but that, I can be weird about these things. That makes sense.
Well, it's also a chance to see, believe it or not, a performance from Jared Leto in absolute, you know, CG costuming,
Yeah.
and still see some personality come through. And that's one of the real successes of Skeletor in this movie, is that in spite of all of the crazy things that they did to bring this character to life, you still see a performance underneath it. And I think
Yeah.
that plays. That worked very well.
Oh, I think Jared Leto and Idris Elba were just in a class above everything else that was going on. And that, to me, that was part of why this felt like so many different movies. Is it felt to me like Idris Elba was obviously having fun with it. Jared Leto was playing this straight serious, kind of like Michael Caine in Muppet
Hmm.
Christmas Carol,
Yep.
serious as cancer, as the meme goes along. I loved him in that role. It just felt so weird compared to everything else. Now,
Yeah, it's interesting.
what'd you think of Evelyn and Allison Brie? Because I thought that was one of the biggest fails of the movie. It
Yeah.
just, and I went back and I watched some of the cartoons of her this morning, and yes, it's a ridiculous character. And
Totally.
I am sure that a lot of men our age who pay women to do terrible things to them loved her character quite a lot when they were that age as kids. She's definitely in that I am mean and sexy and mwahaha. Like for millennials with the Borg Queen, that was, our generation's version. And here she's played so campily. That's why to me this felt just like a Community bit, because and I think so much of what lost me was the, like, Jared Leto is her and Skeletor felt on such different levels, because she's just constantly kind of vamping and playing off a comedy version of Skeletor that isn't there. What did you think of her character in all this?
I am a huge fan of Alison Brie. I think she's very talented,
Yep.
and uh, I I don't. It's one of those things. It's hard for me to be super critical of this performance when I don't know what would have made it
Yeah.
something that I could connect to. But I think you're right. I don't think the conception of Evil Lynn in this universe, where we have Sorceress, we have Skeletor, we have all of the evil, Beast Man, whatever his name was. We have all of these characters who are living up that camp. I don't think that Evil Lynn was a win
Yeah.
in this film. I never quite connected to her. I certainly never got into the character design. I don't think I ever transcended seeing Allison Brie with
Yeah.
the headgear on. I just never reached that point.
Yeah.
And I think that's a disappointing thing, because I think Alison Brie brings a lot to these kinds of characters. I mean, let's go back to Community. She's been doing the obtuse sexy bit for decades at this
Yeah.
point. Like, she can pull that train,
Mhm.
and I never connected with it. I thought that was a miss.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna blame her for this
No.
performance. To me, this is the writing and the direction,
Yep.
because you're right, she's very good at that, but then watch, like, the character she plays in Glow, or the character she played in some other things.
Totally.
She has incredible range.
Yeah.
I think if they'd said, "We want you to play this the way Jared Leto is, like, you are serious, you are sexy and evil, and yes, scheming, and yes, like, it shouldn't be that she's just, like, completely devoted to Skeletor. It should be that she is, happy to stab Skeletor in the back or to sneak out if she can." But, like, yeah, it just felt like they told Alison Brie, just act like this is a Community spoof. And she did a very good job of that because she's very good at it.
Yeah.
But it didn't fit.
Yeah.
It didn't fit.
It was tonally separate from the rest of
Yeah.
the movie in a way that the other characters like Tila and Man at Arms, they all felt like they were on Team He-Man. Like
Yeah.
and I think even the rest of Team Skeletor, all of the beasts and the mechanics and the cyborg creatures, like they all felt like they were of a piece with Team Skeletor. I thought that was fine. It was all really
Yeah.
fine. And then Evelyn, I never felt like we got anything of any interesting substance out of,
Yeah.
and I'll agree with you, out of the script for that character. Character design was underperforming.
Yeah, very much so. I want to talk a bit about the history of He-Man, and then we'll kind of talk about this whole idea of nostalgia and why these movies are getting made. And part of what got me thinking about this, and I don't go to the movies as often as you do, so maybe you've noticed this. I've seen a million MGM Grand, or not MGM, I've seen a million MGM movies, Metro Golden Mayer, and I've always seen the Latin phrase that they use, ars gratia artis. I never really thought about what it meant. This movie, for the first time, as part of the MGM logo, they actually translated it into English. And I have to imagine that maybe they started doing that this year or recently, but this was the first movie I saw that for, which I thought was really ironic, because what that phrase means is art for art's sake. And people have been very clear since the beginning. He-Man was made for one specific purpose: to get you and I to bug our mothers to buy us the toy. Like
100%.
literally, they had all these toys. My understanding is that an order went wrong somehow, and they got far more of these He-Man toys than they planned on. They wanted a way to sell them. They started by writing a little comic book that went with it, and that wasn't doing well enough. And so they created a show. And originally it was just going to be a 30-minute show, but the FCC prohibited that because apparently children's programming couldn't just be a 30-minute infomercial. So they had to have a story. And then also, Filmation, the company, they were legally required by broadcasting standards to include a life lesson as the moral of each episode because it was so linked to toy companies. And so I didn't know this, but apparently, at the end of every episode, I knew this, I just didn't know this was the why. He-Man and one of the other characters would say, and today's lesson is friendship. We have to always be willing to be friends with people. And there was one of the first episodes, literally, it's him saying, in this episode, I won because I befriended this person who was different. Remember, friends, whether people are different in race or religion or anything else, literally, that's what he says, they can be your friend. And if anyone ever remembers the ending of every G.I. Joe episode of, got to remember blah, 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 because, now and knowing is half the battle, that was all broadcast requirements.
Yeah, same thing with like the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, I think was the same thing.
Yeah.
You would have the wizard do something funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something, anytime it was directly linked to a commercial product, this was the broadcast thing. And yeah, so I'm just kind of curious, how do you feel about these things that were, all these things from our childhood, most of which are linked to commercial products like Transformers and this, and, it seems so many of these other things coming back. Are you in general a fan of these nostalgia bait movies? Are you not? Do you not think it's the best thing for Hollywood to be focusing on?
Well, as someone who loves movies, I love movies, and I'm not going to grudge that more movies are existing. And as someone of a certain age, when I see these kinds of properties come around, my first reaction is, "Oh God, no." And then I go see it because I'm curious, and there's a 10-year-old kid inside of me that wants to see if they put on screen what has existed in my sense memory in my head for the last 50 years, 40 years. And that's and so I am both slightly offended by it, and also it's catnip, and those two things have to exist at the same time. Do I think they should be made? I didn't, and then I saw Barbie, and I thought Barbie was enormously successful in what it was doing with that property. So do I think they should keep taking swings? Why not? Why not? Now, originally, when this thing came out as essentially a 30-minute commercial to get us, as you say, to bug our mothers, I as an adult, I imagine myself being enormously frustrated by this cross promotion at the time. I don't know what my parents thought about it at the time, but I know I was the annoying kid. I was the stereotype saying, I got to
Yeah.
get Skeletor. You guys, come on.
Uh-huh.
And I think I would have been frustrated. But that's a decades old frustration.
Yeah. And that's
Now
not
I'm
new
more
by any means.
curious. No,
Like
not
the
at
amount of
all.
Paw Patrol merchandise that is sold today because of
Yes.
the show, and
Yeah.
even I think there's this very cynical view of that we can look at it as like, oh, there are some TV shows that are there to sell toys and others that are there to produce high content. Sesame Street, I think, is one of the best examples of selling high content, and an awful lot of PBS shows got paid for by people buying Big Bird merchandise.
Yes.
And people
Yes.
buying, Grover stuffed animals and stuff like that. So
Right.
there's a part of me that wants to get up on the moral high horse, but also I know that like this has always been the case, and there's always going to be some level of you watch the thing so that I remember the first episode I watched of Mandalorian. I remember one of the things people were saying on Twitter that night was, "What the hell is Disney doing? Why is there not a stuffed Grogu already in the online Disney store?"
Yeah.
And it has turned into a huge marketing thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Also, one other this is not connected to anything. It's just I thought a fun bit. Part of why Mattel decided to push He-Man and then push Barbie and all these things, Barbie the TV show and stuff like that, but especially He-Man, was in the early 80s, it needed an entertainment toy bonanza because they'd had a chance in the late 70s to produce toys for this little known sci-fi thing that was going to come out called Star Wars. And apparently Mattel turned down the Star Wars contract. And so 6 years later, everyone was like, oh my God, we have to find the next thing. And so that's what He-Man was supposed to be. And, and other companies did Transformers and all these things.
Where did Star Wars go? Hasbro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was Mattel.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you asked this question of should this one have been made? Should we keep making it? And thinking about this one is interesting to me. I mean, this is another one of those movies where critics response is generally lower than the audience response. Obviously, not enough people are seeing it. It's a $200 million movie that is not performing to its scale. I think that Travis Knight. And I'm from a part of the country where the Knight family has a bit of a reputation, especially in the arts. And Studio Leica is about 10 minutes from my house. And that was Travis Knight was at the head of that for a long time. I don't know if he's still there. But I find it really interesting, the strategy behind this movie. They could have done, the way I was thinking about it, one of three things, right? You could do faithful reverence to the property, play it completely straight, treat the sacred as completely sacred. And I think we've got some flops that kind of live in that space. He could have done commentary or sort of destroying its own baggage. And I think Barbie, a Lego movie, all great examples of this strategy, using the property to say something about itself or us as the populace of fans, or a real sincere reinvention. Keep the soul, completely change the story. Dungeons and Dragons is one of them. Bumblebee, I think arguably something that Knight was really reaching for with this movie. I think he probably tried to do 2 and 3 at once here. And try to lovingly mock the toys while trying to be at least sincere in a reinvention. And I don't think ultimately the result that we got reconciles those two things. I don't think you've said it a number of times. What we're talking about is not the movie you saw, and you would have loved to see that movie.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to put it, right? That's it. So does a nostalgia property owe anything to the kid who loved it, right? Is there an ethical obligation to honor the source material in a way that a purist would not judge it poorly?
I think it's an interesting question. And I would say there's another category we can throw in to the idea of like what are different ways people can take nostalgia projects, which is the Willow TV show that happened, which was utterly, because you talked about how this one utterly failed to connect with younger generations. And there was some adult language with it. Like I said, there was a number of sexual jokes made, the number of times of talking about fisto and he's going to go fist people, and then Ram Man is going to go give them head.
Yeah.
To a way that I like. I don't care about the kind of stuff, but I can imagine a lot of guys of our generation who might have thought they were going to take their 8-year-old son to it might go, no, it's a little too weirdly adult. That I don't want to do that. But also, I think another great example of, I think, a much higher quality project, but one that missed in the total opposite direction, was the TV show Willow, which was already beloved. I think. Were you a huge Willow fan when you were a kid? Did you want to be Mad Mortigan and all that?
I was not.
Interesting. Okay.
Willow, I saw it. I saw the movie. I never really connected with the property.
That you may have been also a couple of years too, because you're what year were you born? 71, 72?
72.
72. Okay. I really loved it. Me and Ashley Coffin and a couple others did a great podcast on it a number of years ago. Link will be in the show notes. And I think also there's an episode on the Mandy Kaplan, who's been a fan of this podcast, was on the parenting podcast with Pete and I. On her podcast, Make Me a Geek, she did an episode on Willow as well. I just want to give a quick throw-in plug that she's fantastic.
Make me a nerd.
Make Me a Nerd. Thank you. I keep getting this mixed up, but Make Me a Nerd. Check out her episode. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But the Willow TV show was utterly beloved by younger generations and utterly hated by the people who loved the movie, because it did the exact opposite. It told a completely new kind of story in a totally different, in the universe, but in a way that, like, I think if I hadn't ever seen the Willow movie, I would have loved that TV show. But because I was promised Willow nostalgia and I got none of it, I was really annoyed. And so I don't think there's any kind of ethical obligation to that. I think, though, that there is. I think with all art, there's some ethical obligation to say, if there's hard questions here, I'm going to wrestle with them instead of just trying to kick the can and hit it down the road. And to me, I think, I don't want to get too into the politics of it all, but like, I do wonder if this movie would have been a lot different if it was made 5 years ago, because in the last year or so, we've all of a sudden had, let's pay more attention to the manosphere, and let's a real pushback against the way men are often treated in movies and stuff like that. And a number of studio heads saying, like, they're going to try not to be as woke and stuff like that. And I wonder if there actually maybe have been an original script that was much more like the Barbie movie and being critical of it and trying to be a reinvention, or just, they might have been 5 years ago, but they wrote this today and didn't want to go there. But I feel like that's, the changing political landscape of the country, the changing attitudes towards these things. I think it all plays a role. And to me, that's just, I think if you're going to do a remake, at least pick a lane more than anything else. Like, it doesn't have to be political commentary. You can just be camp. You can just be nostalgia. You can just be commentary and nostalgia. I don't care. Just pick something.
Well, I would just throw in there that I think the auteur signaling did an enormous amount of heavy lifting for Barbie. The fact that Greta Gerwig, who was coming off of Lady Bird and Little Women, and she took Barbie and did something really unique with it. I don't think Travis Knight comes with the same.
That's a very high bar to ask people to meet.
Pedigree. Yeah, I mean, it's just a very different space, right? And I'll confirm, he is still the lead animator and CEO of Studio Laika, and they have their new movie Wildwood is coming out, which is already getting great commentary. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is the movie we got. Yeah. It's a big swing. It's a love letter to 10-year-old me, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing for me to say I don't think this movie was made for me, when I believe in my heart of hearts this movie was made for me. It just wasn't made for me right now.
Okay. Yeah. Whereas I think I would say it's something. So tell me about the time that it would have been made for you.
I think I would have had a very different experience had we been in some sort of a time loop, and I could have gone back to being maybe 18 and seeing this
Mm,
movie, or 22, right?
that's fair.
When I
Yeah.
was in a very different headspace in my youth and feeling like as a young man that I was on top of the world and confused about all kinds of directions that and choices and what do I do with my life, but I'm kind of invincible at the same time. And wow, look at this character on the big screen that I loved from just 10 or 12 years ago, who is actually being the guy that I think I could be if I take ownership of my own, agency
Yeah.
moving forward. Like that would have been an interesting time for me to see that movie. This is not I'm no longer I've aged out of that audience. I'm
Yeah.
just not that guy anymore. And now I'm sitting here in the catbird seat being both aware that it's a love letter for me and picking it right the hell apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think for me, I I would have said it was a movie for me, just done very badly. Because I feel like if I loved the Barbie movie, and I remember feeling a sense of jealousy, and not like an overall sense. Like clearly, there's far more movies made for me than for my partner, but I remember like listening to her and others talk about how this movie felt having grown up playing with Barbies. I was like, I would love that, you know. And I do get like there have been many other movies like that. Transformers was like that, Ghostbusters, and I think like there were those fun nostalgia shot moments in this movie for me. And I think had there been more of a, I felt there was a conscious choice of what were they going to do with these big questions around the movie, whatever direction it went. And I just said something that was kind of critical of the filmmakers, of maybe they were kind of like a little cowardly of not engaging with it. I also think that it may just also be that like this is a very hard time to talk about something that is so tied to ideas of masculinity like He-Man.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I just having him have those He-Man pronouns, but having him, Adam Connor, whatever his last name is, in the human world, and it has he him on the nameplate. That's an incredible. There's no way you can do that without me then wondering what are you trying to say about that, because everyone else I looked it up. Apparently, when the first preview for this movie in January did it, there was a huge storm of protest of people going, "Oh, it's woke garbage," blah 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 blah. Whereas I think it was kind of making fun of it. But like,
I think so too.
in either
I
way,
think it's
but like,
satire.
that's the thing. You can't
Yeah.
just have that in a movie without someone like you're saying one thing or the other. And I think that this particular moment where every aspect of masculinity is so debated, I think on the one hand makes it a great time for a He-Man movie, and also an incredibly difficult time to make a low key, we're not going to make a big commentary movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, you look at one of the reasons that Barbie worked so well across generations is that there was something of substance in it for everyone. There were the jokes
Yeah.
for kids, there were the gags for adults, there was there are big monologues and speeches about what it means to be a woman, to be an adult, to, all of those things were of substance. And what we got in He-Man was jokes about oral sex,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
There's a certain thinness, a certain like sort of cellophane approach
Yeah.
to addressing with substance these bigger issues that already had a model. There was already a bridge to doing that with these properties in the form of Barbie from the same studio, right?
Yeah.
Put it in the same machine and see what comes out. And I just don't. I think you're right. I think had this been made 5 years ago, this might have been, we might have seen something different. But
Right.
it ends up being, popcorn fun, I guess, parade of pixels that is ultimately empty.
And I do want to be clear. Yes, I always want to talk about gender and politics and stuff like that. But I'm really glad you brought up the example of the Lego movie. Because I think the Lego movie there's definitely a lot of commentary in there, but it's not poking at like the issue. It's much more commentary about like, how do we, over positive things and like look at everything through positive lights, and how does like, freedom and choice and the importance, but it's on a much more like Lego movie had a lot of commentary, but it wasn't very controversial. Like,
Right.
I don't remember anyone being like, oh my God, I can't believe Lego movie did this. It's kind of anti-capitalist, but in a way that like a lot of Hollywood is, while making billions and billions of dollars,
Right.
So yeah, so it didn't have to be that. It could have been more like that. Could have been more like a Lego movie or anything like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was. I think it's an interesting swing. I don't know what's next for
Yeah.
Mattel Studios, especially after this one.
Well, did you stick
Does
around
this
for
one
the post-credit
influence?
scenes?
I did all of them.
Because I think it did tell you at least one part. First of all, it brought back Orlo and Orko,
Orko.
and
Yeah.
reminded me that hey, I forgot. I was like, for some reason, I thought he was in the Voltron or something else. And so I was like, oh yeah, where was he? But then they did a lead in to what is very clearly a live action She-Ra, and this movie really bombed. So I don't know if they're going to do it. But what do you think if they go in that direction?
Well, that's my that was my central point, right? That you're right. I think will they continue with this project around She-Ra after performance of He-Man? That's I don't
Right.
know. That seems risky. I don't have a connection to She-Ra that I
Yeah.
did to He-Man. I did not watch the show. I don't know anybody who played with She-Ra. And so that would be a bit of a Barbie experience for me.
Yeah.
I didn't have a real connection with Barbie, and I loved the film. I wonder if I would have the same experience with
Yeah.
She-Ra.
Well, and I'd be curious because, like, frankly, if you told me 10 years ago a She-Ra movie was coming out, I'd be like, no thanks. Unless there was like a woman in my life who's, unless like my spouse was really interested in going to see it, I'd be like, yeah, tell me about your experience with She-Ra, and we should go. She didn't, but to be clear, but if, like I had that person in my life, I will say after watching the Netflix show, which unfortunately now been taken off Netflix, but I think you can still find it on other platforms, I would be super excited for it. Except
Yeah.
I can't possibly imagine a super big studio movie again in this day climate. I don't think they're going to make the version that's super feminist and super queer. And in that case, I don't, it's sort of like because that show exists, there might only be a small portion of the audience who knows about it. But I would imagine that 80% of the people who care about She-Ra today, it's because of that show.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that's kept it alive. Or it's because they're the people who said, I don't want to watch that show because you're wearing shorts under the skirt. And I don't want a movie made for if that's your main reason to watch She-Ra. So, yeah, I would love to see a She-Ra movie from one perspective. I don't think this is it. And frankly, given the success of this movie, and like I came out of it, one of my first thoughts was, if this movie is beating Mando and Grogu, which you can hear me and Pete talk about on the film board, is not our favorite movie by any means. But if this was beating that, I'd have real fears about America. This is doing 1/3 as well in terms of the opening weekend as Mando and Grogu did. So I
Mando
can't.
and Grogu is still being considered a failure at the box office.
Right. And it's the lowest performing Star Wars movie, I think. And granted, it's the first post-pandemic one, which is a big deal. But
yeah,
I don't think this is going to be a launch a franchise.
I don't think so. I don't
Yeah.
think so. I have heard that they are talking about other toy properties, board game properties, things like that, to give this sort of Barbie treatment to, now that they have repackaged Mattel Studios. Is there a Mattel property that you feel like would be a banger that you would see shut up and take my money style?
Okay, good question, because that was my last question to you is what's the toy or TV show that should become this? And for me, I don't think this is Mattel because it didn't sell a toy, it sold a candy. I want the Gummy Bears movie that is constantly winking at the fact that those bears are high as fuck. Because gummy berry juice, like, I watched as a kid and I had no idea, and the song slaps, but you go back and watch it now, those people were high as kites. Like, that was the whole point. Or it's steroids. It's one of the two. I don't know. I think some kind of, let's still have fun with it. They're really cute. They have, high adventures beyond compare, but also that winks a lot at the audience. I think a Gummy Bears movie could be perfect nostalgia bait.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, the only other, because I was already a Transformers kid,
Right.
and they've already made that. And was it my Transformers? it was fine. It's exactly
Yeah.
what I needed, and there were some of those that were actually fun. I don't think they ever did Devastator, and I wanted
No.
my construction vehicles to come together and form Devastator so bad.
I
Um,
I will say that the animated show they did was much better than I thought it was. Plug, we did an episode on it a while ago, and I loved
Outstanding.
Bumblebee, but the original
Okay.
movies were Michael Bay. No, no, thank you.
A movie that I thought was much better than it deserved to be was Real Steel. Do you remember Real Steel with Hugh
I
Jackman?
I that was the like Rock'em Sock'em Robots father son movie.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And that is on the list for the Mattel treatment. That Hot Wheels, somehow there's an action adventure Hot Wheels movie in the
Okay,
queue. Like
okay.
those two were my other, like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I played the heck out of that game, and
Yeah.
Hot Wheels. Who knows what's going to come of that? But those are, I mean, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You know, Vin Diesel is slated to be in that movie, so.
Of course he is. Of course he is.
Who else
I
would you possibly imagine?
I'm trying to think what were some of those other, like, shows that were like that, or even just, like, the Saturday morning cartoons that we loved so much.
Well,
Um,
the other ones on the list. So there are 16 projects, and here's what it looks like. Masters of the Universe, we got Matchbox, Cars, Hot Wheels. Matchbox Cars has John Cena and Jessica Biel slated to be a part of that. Bob the Builder, and that's an animated feature film with
right.
Anthony Ramos. Polly Pocket, written and directed, live action Polly Pocket, written and directed by Lena Dunham. Rock'em Sock'em with Vin Diesel, American Girl, and Barney, Magic 8 Ball, Uno, Viewmaster, and Wishbone are in various stages of development. Magic 8 Ball is described as a horror comedy, and that I think we're getting into some real Ouija territory, right? Like 'cause there
Mhm.
is some stuff in the Ouija series that's legit scary, and that's based on a board game, right? Um,
Right. Well,
so
wasn't there a, Winnie the Pooh horror movie that came out recently? Like,
there was
Blood
it
and
was
Honey?
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Yeah, it was. That was a whole. That's. I mean, you get into public domain stuff, and Winnie the Pooh went dark. Um,
You know,
I think it
I
has a sequel too.
there's some of that stuff that is just gonna miss me. I will say the Barney one is gonna bring back a weird nostalgia because I was in perfect older brother territory for Barney. Like, that was one of those
Okay.
things that was not my thing, but it was beloved of all of my friends' younger siblings or like the next generation. And so I distinctly remember one of my favorite high school gatherings was when me and a bunch of our friends at like 16 got together in a park, put a bunch of Barney memorabilia into a trash can, lit it on fire, and danced around chanting "We Mock Your Existence."
I don't think that's going to be the subject of the film. I think they're going to go in a different direction. I hope that's not disappointing.
I mean, I don't expect that, but I'm gathering. Hating Barney was definitely a meme at that day. You know, the internet was just getting started, but it was a thing. So
I think a
yeah,
photorealistic purple dinosaur, like, it would be the way to do it. Like, just trying to make his way in the world.
well, there is that movie that's coming out now, The End of Oak Street, I think, which is like I remember watching. It was like it's a dinosaur scary movie, and it's not Jurassic Park, and I didn't know that was legal. But I guess Jurassic
Wow.
Park no longer has the claim on dinosaur movies.
Okay.
So,
I'm needing to do some Googling.
oh, is that not a
Uh,
preview in your version of it?
I've never heard of this.
So the last property I will throw out, and then apparently there was a new version of the animated show, but I would love to see live action because it is, in my mind, one of the best combinations of just Disney World stuff, but also an incredible spoof of my favorite comic book character, Darkwing Duck.
Okay.
Darkwing Duck is Batman as a duck.
Yeah.
And it is, I don't know if you were too old for it. It was just perfect when I was a kid. That's the one I want to see live action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think that would be a good one, but I think there is a lot of Disney in that era of Disney TV that hasn't been taken to, their new live action angle.
Yeah.
Like the Scrooge McDuck, DuckTales, like all of those properties. I'm down for all of those.
Yeah.
I would
I'll
find
say
the
also
youth to drag to those movies.
the one I will close by saying the last I remember there's one other I think that's been a very successful version of nostalgia baiting but updating a TV show that I think was very much in the same universe as He-Man, Scooby-Doo. The Scooby-Doo movies have made such a good version of, first of all, acknowledging the pothead aspect,
Yes.
acknowledging all the queer and campy dynamics. And those, I haven't seen them, but I know they've just been wildly successful and everyone loves them.
They're legit funny. Like they are legitimately funny movies. A
Yeah.
lot of them are. And I think you're right. I think that I can always have fun going back to a
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo movie. They get it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Pete, thank you so much as always. I
My
love that I can
pleasure.
just come up with these crazy ideas and you will decide to hop on with me. As I
100%.
mentioned, you should check out the TrueStory.fm. As I mentioned, another podcast you should check out is The Next Reel, where Pete and myself and a couple of others just did an episode about Mandalorian and Grogu. But Pete, that's by no means the only podcast you're on. Give us a little sprinkling of where else we can find you.
Well, you can every place at truestory.fm. I'm on a number of shows there across the Next Reel family of film podcasts. I host the Headstone podcast about, looking at your life and delivering a great last line. It's on death and mortality. It's a real charmer. And I also, I write books, and you can find out more about my books at itsmepete.com. My first work of fiction, Lattice, came out in April. The second version, the second book in that series is coming out in about 2 months, and
Nice.
I even have another book coming out before that is not in that same universe. So I'm very excited to do that.
Nice.
Maybe I'll have some sort of a mailing list on there that you can look at. But I think people in your audience might actually like some of the fun stuff I'm writing.
Yeah.
At itsmepete.com.
Yeah, definitely check out all of that. All those notes will be in the show notes. Of course, all those links will be in the show notes. Of course, you can find all of my podcasts at theethicalpanda.com. You'll also find my Star Wars podcast, where we're doing a lot of stuff on Maul. We're doing a lot of stuff on Mando and Grogu. We very soon have an episode coming out, probably in about 2 weeks, for Pride Month, where we're going to be talking about some of the queer characters in Star Wars. And no, we don't just mean the two women who kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker. We're going to talk about Sister, the transgender clone. We're going to talk about a number of awesome characters in that. So on behalf of myself and Pete, thank you all so much for tuning in. We have spoken.